All right, so in the spirit of reconciliation, we'd like to acknowledge that we live, work, and play on the unceded traditional territories of the Blackfoot Confederacy, including the Siksika, Kainai, Piikani, and the Tsuut'ina and the Stoney Nakoda nations, and the Métis Nation Region 3 for those of us in the Calgary region. And for those in Edmonton, we acknowledge the traditional lands of the Treaty 6 territory of the Cree, Dene, Blackfoot, Saulteaux, Nakota, Sioux, as well as the Métis. And if you find yourselves in other regions of the country, if you could take a moment to acknowledge the unceded territories you live and play upon. So, welcome again. Here's our hashtag. Please feel free to shout out what you're up to on social media. My name is Bridget Legault. I'm community manager in Calgary, and my partner in crime, Amber Rowden, our community storyteller, is on a road trip this morning. So it's just me. And I think we're scheduled to have James to help co-host today. Are you there, James? And that is okay if he's not, because I've already taken time getting this show up. So we'll just on with the show. I'm just going to play this quick video about what the rainforest culture is all about.
What does it take to realize an idea, or for a seed to sprout? At Rainforest Alberta, we know the answer is rooted in trust. Traditionally, Albertans have cultivated their ideas in established systems. Inputs that don't fit these systems are weeded out. Opportunities for growth are missed. But now, Albertans want a dynamic landscape that can evolve organically, like a rainforest. At Rainforest Alberta, we believe a culture of trust is the fertile soil where ideas grow. Our budding innovation ecosystem is a network of relationships pulling each other up as they push forward in their own field. Trust breaks down barriers. An open, inclusive network increases collaborative innovation. Successful breakthroughs inspire new ideas. A cycle begins. Rainforest Alberta is a movement to amplify trust by cultivating honesty, inclusion, and accountability. How? Our social contract holds us accountable to demonstrate trust across the province. We meet to have honest conversations around collaboration. This leads to more inclusive spaces for everyone to fearlessly build new ideas together. By raising the standard of trust, Alberta's ideas, talent, and resources can be evergreen. Visit rainforestab.ca to sign the social contract and start growing together.
Okay, so for anyone that's new, that's kind of what the culture is all about here. We work to create a culture of trust, diversity, and collaboration to help accelerate innovation, as research proves that is how it works. For those who have been around, you're probably like, do we need to see this video again? But you do, because I think that every time it maybe sparks something new, I hope. Within our rainforest, we use 6 pillars to measure, I guess, the ecosystem or the rainforest, however you want to look at it. Most heavily weighted is the culture pillar, and that is what we work to improve and grow here at the rainforest. We also focus specifically on engaged activities through this hour, but all the pillars are touched on throughout various organizations throughout the innovation sector. We will be running the scorecard assessment later this year here in Calgary, where everyone will have the opportunity to measure the ecosystem through a survey. So stay tuned for that. So to make the most out of Lunch Without Lunch today, if you are new or not, please feel free to introduce yourself in the chat. Please don't spam each other. Make it a meaningful direct messages or introduction, maybe to get conversation going. If you want to right now throw into the chat what you appreciate about the rainforest community, that might be a good way to start connecting. Put your camera on if you don't mind being seen eating your lunch, if that's what you're doing. We don't care. Ask questions and keep connecting on our Slack workspace after the hour. If you don't have access to it, you should gain access after signing the social contract. And if you have any glitches there, just get in touch with myself or Amber and we can help you out. We always capture the chat in lunch notes in the Slack channel for people who want to reference back to the conversation. And we post the recording of the hour on our YouTube channel. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing at this point. We have been doing a virtual series throughout the summer, and we're going to carry it through for as long as we can keep convincing founders to share their story. So we'll be either doing a virtual tour or just hearing a founder story every a Wednesday. And so a couple of weeks ago, I was fortunate enough to host an hour of the Great Alberta Pitch Marathon. And it was all about food, my hour. And it is there where I learned, well, I had heard already about Hayday Fermentables and Margot Loveseth. And so she is here with us today to share her story and how she's innovated the business model around fermentables. So Margot, having discovered the health benefits of fermented foods, decided to try making them herself, like many before and since. She found that the process seemed confusing and intimidating, but she persisted anyway and ultimately found that home fermented food was delicious and the process was not hard. As a serial entrepreneur, she realized that she could make this easier and created Hayday Fermentables. Hayday offers easy to use home fermentation kits that include reliable hardware, easy to follow instructions, and perfected recipes with pre-portioned ingredients. Hayday's motto sums it up: do it yourself doesn't mean doing it alone. And so I know Margot from a past life. She is a very well-seasoned entrepreneur in the city of Calgary, and we're happy to have her today. So I will pass it over to you, Margot. You ready?
Thank you, Bridget. Thanks so much. Hello, everybody. I'll take a moment and share my screen. All right. I assume that everybody can see it now.
Yes, sorry, had to unmute. Looks good.
Great. Thank you. All right. Well, good afternoon. I really wanted to make a super slick video that would give you a tour of my company. But not only do I not have the resources to produce a video like that, but I don't actually have my own facility to tour you through. But don't worry, I'm going to give you a tour using the skill set and facilities that I do have. And I'm quite confident that there'll be something in today's presentation that you'll find helpful or interesting. My tour will start with my journey to this point and the valuable aspects of Alberta's ecosystem that helped me stay on the path. From there, I'm going to give you a quick tour of the collective kitchen where magic happens for many small businesses and a place that could become invaluable infrastructure for food and consumer product goods startups. Then I want to invite you into my passion, the world of fermented food, functional food. We can explore the culture, the why, and the how. And finally, I'd like to show you how I've solved the problem of successful fermentation for those that want to do it themselves. The journey. About 6 years ago, after discovering the digestive benefits of fermented foods, I wanted to make sauerkraut. I went to the internet for direction and quickly got confused and overwhelmed. But I gathered up some supplies, picked a recipe, and gave it a go. It worked. My first fermentation attempt was successful. But what really surprised me was how delicious homemade sauerkraut really was. I wanted to make more. I had recently sold my business and had time and money to explore. I tried many ferments, some successful and some not. The more that I got into it, the more I discovered that fermenting food is actually easy. It just seems hard. However, the basic principles and hardware must be good to be successful. More and more people are becoming interested in fermented foods and will be looking to make it themselves. I realized that I could make a difference by making it easy. I think that I bought every kind of hardware that there is, and I tried a lot of recipes and read everything that I could about fermentation. The kits that make up the Heyday product line are the results of that research. Just as I was about to launch my great new business, coronavirus took hold of the world. No need to go into the whole sad story, but it changed a lot for me, and I found myself quite alone and unsure of how to proceed. Fortunately, yes?
Sorry, Margot. I just wanted to say that the slides aren't advancing, so I don't know if they were meant to.
They actually, unfortunately, this first slide is very long.
Okay, no, sorry to interrupt. I didn't want to miss anything.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you. So coronavirus took hold of the world, and that changed a lot for me. Fortunately, I live in Alberta, where the entrepreneurship support and infrastructure is strong and accessible. I sought help and support from BusinessLink and joined the Peerpreneur group. Though we met through online video, it was nice to get together with other entrepreneurs and chat through what's working and what isn't. Working in a home office as a solopreneur with no networking opportunities, I felt that my ideas were stagnating in my head. I needed to talk to people to get out of my head. And my bank, ATB, was there too. I participated in their entrepreneurs program, ATBX, and worked through some of the challenges through that coursework. It's quite astounding to me that a bank has become quite a strong resource for entrepreneurs. They even launched a marketplace to help sell products for local small businesses during the pandemic. And it was through one of these supports that I learned about Platform Calgary's Alberta Yield Program. This agriculture and food tech advisory program is offered by Platform Calgary and supported by the other familiar supports that you see here. I derive so much value from this program, and I'm tremendously thankful to have been accepted into the second cohort. Oh, how I wish I had known about the lean startup methodology, and in the very least, what a minimum viable product was. My path to launch would have been so different. Any business that packages any foodstuff for resale must work out of an AHS-approved commercial kitchen. I want to give you a quick tour of the kitchen that I work out of. In the last few years, several of these collective kitchens have opened in the Calgary area. Food entrepreneurs can rent the space by the hour instead of investing tens of thousands of dollars building a suitable commercial kitchen. I rent out of the South Calgary Kaladi kitchen to package my dry ingredients and make samples. I apologize, the video is a little bit frantic at the beginning. So they have huge walk-in coolers where you can rent racks. They have a big freezer just like that as well. There's 5 separate commercial kitchens in here that you can rent by the hour. They include gas stoves, baking racks, ovens, prep tables. One even has a proofing oven for bakers. There's a variety of different kinds of commercial appliances, huge commercial mixers. There's pots and pans and bowls and baking racks, a sink dedicated for vegetables, and of course a dish pit as well. All kinds of food businesses work out of here. There's some interaction between entrepreneurs, but not nearly as much as there should or could be. Just think of the beneficial collisions that could happen here if encouraged and supported. Anyway, back to my passion, fermentation. Very quickly, let me tell you the why of fermented food. Not only is it a time-tested way to successfully preserve food naturally, and virtually every culture has their own traditional fermented food, but scientific studies are revealing the tremendous benefits of fermented foods. Unlike pickling, the process does not kill any of the resident nutrients in the vegetables. Not only that, but it actually increases the vitamin content and makes the nutrients more bioavailable. If that's not enough, fermented foods are full of probiotics. Probiotics are, by definition, bacteria that offer health benefits. The health benefits of fermented foods are improved digestion, boosted immunity, increased energy, and potentially mood improvement. Oh, and by the way, it's delicious. Foodie worthy, in fact. I'm not going to say that fermentation is just like a rainforest, but successful fermentation requires a symbiotic culture of bacteria and yeast. When the right environment is created, nature can take over, and as long as the supports remain in place, success is most certainly achieved. The process of lactofermentation begins by creating an environment where the bad bacteria cannot survive and the good bacteria thrive. With fermented food, this is done by combining the right proportion of natural salt with the vegetables by weight. Everything is then kept in an anaerobic environment until the optimal fermentation period is completed. During fermentation, CO2 is produced and pressure in the vessel can build up. The Heyday caboodle has a self-venting lid. This one-way valve lets the CO2 release slowly without allowing air or contaminants in. No more burping the jars. The kit also includes a visco disc, which inserts into the caboodle and holds the vegetables under the brine. This allows for a complete and consistent fermentation. The final component of the Heyday caboodle kits is the recipe pack. This includes easy-to-follow, clear instructions, a shopping list of the perishable ingredients that you'll need, some helpful tips, and a link to a page on the website that has the ingredients and instructions for other recipes designed for the caboodle. Let me show how easy it is to make sauerkraut. I also want to tell you about my favorite probiotic beverage, Tibicos, otherwise known as water kefir. Unlike kombucha, Tibi doesn't have that vinegary aftertaste. It's naturally carbonated, naturally probiotic, and flavored with whatever fruit or botanical you like. Like kombucha, it needs a culture or a SCOBY to get started. In the case of Tibi, you feed the kefir crystals sugar water, and the SCOBY consumes the sugar and produces the probiotics and carbonation. It ferments in 1 day in the vessel designed specifically for water kefir fermentation. Then the fermented liquid is poured off into smaller sealed containers with fruit or flavor. It takes only 1 more day for the Tibi to pull the flavor from the fruit and build up the carbonation. The Kefirco vessel has a self-straining lid, allowing you to pour off the fermented liquid directly into the fridge bottles, keeping the Tibi crystals in the vessel, ready to start the next batch. And here's how easy the whole process is. The Tibi kit is probably my favorite product. It's healthy and delicious and easy to integrate into one's routine. To wrap it up, here's all my contact information. If there's any way that I can offer any information, help, or support to anyone in the network, please let me know, because doing it yourself doesn't mean doing it alone. Thank you.
Awesome, Margot. I love your videography. I don't know if you did that yourself, but it is awesome.
Thank you. No, I hired professionals at different times to create some of that for me.
Oh, they did great work. So everyone can get their questions ready, either hand up or use the chat. Winnie wants to know if the crystals are included in the kit.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a very important part of the process. So yes.
Is it a subscription service, Margot, then? Do you offer subscription?
Not yet. That is in the plan. When I originally launched, my intention was to have the kits include all of the perishables. And in fact, on the website, you'll see that is the bulk of the kits there now. But through the customer discovery that I did, having learned that through platform yield, I'm about to do a major pivot, which is to move entirely to the non-perishable kits. And over the next year or two, I plan on building up some partnerships that I can bring the perishables back. It's just too hard to coordinate and scale perishable ingredient delivery.
Yeah, I know that too well. I used to do that.
Yes, you do.
You know that. Yeah, it's a tough game. All right, questions from the crowd. Oh, Elaine has a question. Is there a kit for sourdough bread? That's a great question. Fermentation?
No, no. Sourdough is very complicated to build out as a kit. I really wanted to create kits around the probiotics, around the health benefits. So though sourdough is a fermented product, it's very low on the list of products that I'll be adding.
Yeah, fair enough.
Mm-hmm.
And a key one. Peter asks, what science do you use to support the health benefits of this process?
There's a lot of published science, particularly well, probably the most commonly published fermented food is yogurt. That's because it's got the huge milk lobby behind it. They can afford to do the scientific studies, but a lot of research has been done looking at kimchi and sauerkraut, and they have the benefits that I've listed are peer-reviewed actual scientific studies. The one that is still uncertain is the brain-gut connection, but they do say that there is a connection with melatonin and GABA that comes from the healthy microbiome. But there's not a lot of studies there for me to dig my heels in on that one. But definitely digestion. There's a ton of studies support that.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, geez, now they're pouring in. Yeah, Scott's going to share it with his friends. I'm thinking it's a good gift idea for someone who has everything. And Shannon, I think, who's the founder, correct me if I'm wrong, Shannon, but what business did you have before this, and how did your lessons learned inform how you approach developing and launching Heyday?
Well, the business that I had before this is quite different. It was retail. I launched and owned the costume shop, which is on Blackfoot Trail. It still exists. I sold the business. Probably the most direct connection that has helped me with this one is I've always been an early adopter, and I actually had launched the online, the e-commerce for the costume shop in 2005. So, it's understanding e-commerce is at a cellular level for me, I think. And that's what gave me the confidence to go ahead and pick a brand new realm to launch a new business in.
Well, now that you've disclosed that, you might get hit up by everyone looking for e-commerce expertise, but everybody knows the costume shop. It's a landmark in Calgary. So thanks for that. Mm-hmm. And James wants to know, how many batches are you able to make with the kit? Hopefully few, so we keep buying more.
The kit includes the dry ingredients for only your first batch, but it also includes the measurements, so you can do it yourself. But I also on the website do sell refill packs for that. And it occurs to me I didn't answer the question about subscription. Subscription is one of the things that I plan on adding as I head into the winter season.
Awesome. And then Marnie's asking a question about sugar and how does water kefir compare? She stopped making kombucha because of the high sugar content.
Mm-hmm. The vessel, the initial fermentation is 4 cups of water to a 1/4 cup of sugar. The culture consumes or converts a lot of that sugar into the carbonation and into the probiotics, but there still will be resident sugar left. When you add fruit to the second fermentation, you're adding, of course, sugar again, but naturally a natural sugar. The longer you leave it to ferment in the second ferment, the more and more sugar that gets consumed. And you can tell I prefer my water kefir after 5 days in the fridge, and it's quite dry, but there still is definitely sugar.
Is it as sweet? I've never had water kefir. Is it it's taste-wise not as sweet?
I'd call it an off dry. Yeah, it's not terribly sweet.
Cool. Alan, do you want to unmute?
Yeah, I think I'm unmuted. So I have a couple questions for you. I'll make them as quick as possible. So I don't know a whole lot about it, but I know I do buy probiotics, and there's sort of a thing where they talk about different kinds of probiotic cultures or strains and things like that. So when you do these by yourself, do you get all different kinds of strains, or does it vary upon the different kinds of vegetables that you use?
Yeah, there will be some variation because you're not actually inoculating it with any probiotics. It's the process uses what's on the vegetables and actually in the air that we breathe. The most common probiotic, though, is LAB, lactobacillus, which actually I meant to mention that it's basically lactic acid bacteria, which is what gives it sort of that pickled flavor as well. But so there will be some variation, but you can be sure that there's a lot of LAB.
Okay, got it. Because I wasn't too sure, because I noticed that you had a package of salt and then you had a package of crystals. May I ask kind of what does the crystals exist of?
Well, in the sauerkraut kit, it's actually not crystals. It's a package of salt. I use Canadian sea salt and caraway actually for flavor.
Oh, cool. Okay, got it. Now a couple of business questions for you. So how long have you been in business?
I incorporated in the summer of 2019 and was due to launch at the end of March 2020. I actually took a deep breath and launched in June.
Got it. Okay. And so what are your challenges as a business and young and starting there?
For me, the challenges. I think the biggest challenge was the model that I started with. To any advice that I give to new entrepreneurs now will be to develop your minimum viable product and do customer discovery. I don't know if it's my generation of business people, but the arrogance to think that I can predict what people will want is out of this world. So that, accepting that truth and making the pivot now is the biggest challenge that I'm finding. But I don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. So the other big challenge is, as I am able to scale this with the modified product, is looking for partnerships that will allow me to go back to that original model, which would include the convenience of all the ingredients.
Got it. Okay, and one last question is, from a nurturing community such as us, what kinds of things would you be looking for from us, or what kind of assistance could we provide you?
Any connections that might feel compatible. I think I don't want to say specifically, because, and I think this is what Rainforest is all about, is sometimes you don't know which connection is going to provide so much benefit. Definitely I need to figure out distribution so that I can get back to the model of the perishables. But right now it's just exposure.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Awesome question, Alan. We should add that to every presentation. Peter, yeah, with your actual hand up, not a virtual one. Thank you.
I'm quite an analog kind of guy. I just wondered, in the fermentation process, before things start to rot, where does that stop? And this may sound like a joke, but my wife keeps trying to stop me from eating things in the refrigerator that have been around for too long. Can you give me some advice on that?
Well, though some people might sort of line fermentation up with rotting, they are actually very different things. Rotting might not have been done in an environment where the bad bacteria can't survive. In fact, they might still be there. So your wife is right.
Is that the hair? Is that the hairy stuff that goes on the meat?
That hairy stuff, yeah. You want to avoid that. Yeah. So if you do want to eat old vegetables out of the refrigerator, make sure you put them in with the supports necessary.
Thank you.
Glad we could help Peter out with that. Shelley was asking if the dry ingredients are available in grocery stores or elsewhere.
Absolutely. All of the dry ingredients are relatively simple to find, as are the perishables. For example, with the kimchi kit that I've got that doesn't include the perishables, I've made sure that they're really easy to find ingredients. So this recipe includes carrots instead of Korean radish. That's quite difficult to find. But the dry ingredients, as I said, in the case of sauerkraut, is sea salt and caraway. With the dill carrot kit, it's sea salt and a dill blend, but you could just use dill weed. I personally really prefer a good quality salt. You can use kosher salt or any sea salt, but I have found that a good old Canadian small business, Vancouver Island sea salt, makes an incredible product, which is what I include all in my kits.
Nice. Awesome. Okay, we'll do this last question, I think, and then we'll move into some networking. Well, actually, there's two things here. I'm curious about this too, about with sugar, there's some beautiful alcohol might be produced as well. Do you want to speak to that, Margot?
Yeah, over time, the longer you leave it to ferment, there will be an alcoholic content in kefir. Even after a couple of days, there'll be a trace amounts. But as time goes on and as it becomes less sweet, it will become more alcoholic. But I don't think it's possible to make a hard kefir. Honestly, it's a trace amount.
Yeah, I've always wondered that about kombucha because I let my kids drink kombucha. Should I not let my kids be drinking kombucha?
Just like kefir, there'll be a trace amount of alcohol, maybe 0.05, but 0.5%. So it's a very small amount, but there are some makers in the US that are making hard kombucha, but that requires adding an extra yeast that will take it to a higher alcoholic level.
Interesting. Okay, last question and a good one. Are you in local or national stores currently? And if so, which ones? How can we get more?
No, I'm not in any stores yet. Now that I have committed to what I'm calling my big pivot, I'm now checking source. I'm making sure that my product, I can get it. I can't think of the word right now. Because of the pandemic, of course, shipping is a problem. Sourcing is a problem. So over the winter, during slow season, I will be working on that, and I expect to be in stores. Up until now, when my business model included the perishables, that was a very difficult angle to go through stores, but now it's much easier. So soon.
Awesome. Great to hear. Okay, well, thank you so much for your presentation, Margot. There might be some more questions coming in that you might want to hit up in the chat, and we will head into some networking today. So for those of you who are new to the rainforest, this is what we do. This is what Margot was talking about as far as colliding with people you may not otherwise, especially in the never-ending pandemic world. So here's your chance to get to know people in the community and either make an ask of them or offer free help, or even just, chat about what you have learned today. So I'm going to open some breakout rooms. We're going to do them automatically again, because when we were letting people choose, it just got a little crazy. So I just opened those rooms up, and no, I didn't. Now I did. And we'll see you back in about 7-8 minutes, and do it again.
Thank you.
So that is a wrap. We're back a little early, just kind of like an awkward timing there of like too long or too short, but we'll leave the room open afterwards and can throw people into breakouts if there's many wanting to stick around and continue networking.
Hey, Bridget.
Yes.
Halia would like to ask a question from our group. We wanted to ask a question to Margot.
Awesome.
Hi, so I have actually two little questions. So I was surprised that Margot said that during the pandemic, it was harder for her because like a lot of people started to experience with food, and like all the sourdough bread trends and like baking and cooking classes that boomed. So how come it was like this hard for her?
Thank you for your question. Okay, I'm going to exhibit one of the rainforest aspects, and I'm going to be fully transparent. It would have been a really good opportunity, but unfortunately, as I headed into the beginning of 2020, I had counted my chickens before they hatched. I knew that this business would take a lot of money to launch. Because it is a new trending area. And so there'd be some education. I'd need to have a lot of money to get the company in front of enough consumers to scale, to launch properly and scale. The pandemic actually froze my the funds that I had earmarked for marketing. So that is why it was hard.
Okay, I see. One more question. So is it possible to buy like portions of your product, elements of your product separately, like just the containers or just the, I don't know, just the water kefir salts, like packages of those guys?
In some cases, yes. With what I call the caboodle kits, which is the sauerkraut and kimchi kits. I don't sell those separately. And the reason is, for successful fermentation, you need to have the right proportions of ingredients. So if people use their typical sauerkraut recipe, this is a different sized vessel. So they might not get it right. I really want them to get it right, but they can use that again and again. Now, in the case of the water kefir, I do sell the crystals separately. So, and then, you know, there are the recipe refill kits, but I don't sell the caboodle by itself. It is a complete kit.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks for coming back with more questions. That's great. We'll throw it over to community announcements. I'll just quickly do an update on the Lunch Without Lunch schedule. We were canceling next week so that everyone could attend Inventors in person, but that has now been canceled, as have most in-person events. So we will resume with our usual Lunch Without Lunch. We were just going to do networking, but I actually just met with an awesome new startup who's working on a community platform, which is really specific to people looking for careers in tech. It's very cool. So we'll have them demo it, and everyone can check out if they want to, you know, be part of this new online community, which is cool. And so that's next week. What happens after that? I don't know. I don't remember. Anyone else have announcements that they would like to share?
Hey, everyone. So we're on the last week of sign up for our children's business fair. So if you guys know of anyone that's interested, I'll post the link for everyone to sign up.
Awesome. Thanks, Travis. Anybody else?
I vote that we all buy something from Margot.
Yes, Peter, that is awesome. That's a great idea. I love that. I'll do a shout out for the podcast for Al. We were talking about this at the beginning of or just before we started today. If anyone in the community wants to either host or be a guest on the Libby podcast, do get in touch with myself, Amber, or Al. He works very hard to keep that podcast going, and he produces an awesome shows of great stories in the innovation sector. But if you have an initiative that you'd like to see brought to life in the community, get in touch too, because there's a good chance there are others who might want to take part and volunteer and just help make the community a richer place. So please don't be shy if you want to see something new blossom and want to kind of hold that on with yourself or others in the community. So I will leave the room open, and thank you all for attending. Thank you, Margot, so much for sharing your story. And also Margot, as she mentioned, attended a lot of entrepreneurial programs in the province. And so if you would like to pick her brain on that, I'm sure she'd be open to sharing how beneficial those were for her. So thank you, Margot, and have a great rest of the week, all.
Great presentation, Margot. Thank you.
Thank you.
It was. And thank you, everybody.